contributed to a huge outbreak of the pandemic, of the cholera pandemic at that time. So then planning came in, and planning was supposed to solve it by providing infrastructure, by changing the city really. This brought planning into a category of hygienic and health measurement. However, we have also to remind us that the COVID-19 is not a waterborne disease like the cholera is. So we have a lot of examples now discussed regarding, we changed our cities, we changed our outlays after the cholera pandemic, but the COVID is not water-based disease, so it will not have the same impact. It will not have the same ways to fight it, or the resilience towards this kind of pandemics is not very easily responded to by spatial replanning, restructuring, etc. So there's a big difference to this. The Spanish flu would be more closer to cholera, and the Spanish flu, though it had much more victims than the choleras the cholera outbreaks in the 19th century, the Spanish flu had not left any trace of urban design in the layout of cities. So when we want to understand what could be a resilience response towards the pandemics, the current pandemic, I think cities are really struggling at this moment in finding the right way of solutions. And you can see that by the global diversity in responses, which is striking. Every city comes up with different ways to lock down, separation, not using of public areas, public transport, etc. But this is very emergent. This is very immediate crisis response. The crisis response, of course, is not what will last forever. And then there is another problem, which is that everything that is in favor of the virus is actually part of what is a city. And that is, just to put out two of those, diversity and density. Diversity and density are very important features of urban life and urban development and economic development in urban areas, etc. Because we need both. We need closeness, proximity to the markets, to the people, to the individuals. We need a diversity of people. We need to have, that's why I'm showing these pictures in some time. We have open systems. Cities are welcoming and bringing out, so that they are in a bigger context. They are complex in the way they would interact with their surroundings, with other cities, etc. So we have to have open adaptive systems in cities. Cities are open adaptive systems, but that also means that we have an influx of people and then also of viruses, and we have an outflux of viruses. So if you think of this picture in terms of economic goods or the financial flows, it's a wonderful picture. If you think of it in terms of pandemics, it's not such a nice image. So we have to be very careful about what we are talking about if we want to change development to something that is maybe less open or more constrained in these adaptiveness of the city. So if you understand cities as open systems, we also have to understand that they are non-deterministic. We do not know, we cannot predict what will come in the near future, especially now with a lot of changes happening in all our areas, social, economic, environmental. We have to be prepared that whatever is coming up might be not a new normal, because we are not going back to something. I think we will have to look for a new stage. And there was actually very promising lectures, very promising presentations yesterday and today regarding the possibilities we have, the opportunities that we are given by this current very severe crisis. But we also have to think about how strongly we need to get, for example, the economic going on, the traveling getting back to normal, which means that we will definitely give less priority to climate change. And as I'm going into my last 2 minutes, I would like to jump to two very quick, because I was asked by Mohanty to provide an idea about the possibility of institutional, technical, and political changes or interventions. So we have learned that emergent features, whatever comes out of an interaction between two agents in the city, can be, for example, an institution like a party group, a department, planning department, because there is need for planning. But nowadays, this is completely hampered by having to deal with one priority only, which is the coronavirus. So if you think about development from the perspective of what Mohanty was asking for, of having values, institutions, and processes working with each other and having an interaction with each other, you have to first state that there is a multitude of institutions. So maybe not each and every institution at this moment is able to respond, which makes it more difficult to prioritize or to have our actions clearly outlined. And more even in terms of values and our policy interventions. We have now, and this is the only moment when we can really discuss this openly, is we have now to decide which one is more important. We've seen that economic growth has been prioritized over green development, green infrastructure, ecological, environmental features in the city. Now we have to see if the economic growth even outweighs the importance of social values. If this would be the fact, we would have a severe problem. But maybe we can state that now, when social development is at stake versus environmental issues, resilience issues, which one do we give preference? Is humanity really free of being environmental bound? Can we be without nature? No, we cannot. So I think the only way to get this balance right is to think about nature, environmental, and resilient features have to be more important to us than economic features, while social development, social features are on top of it. They are integrative to our. I wanted to talk a bit about the processes that we can find in the institutions, but I will just jump to my final, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Let us go to the next presentation by Dr. Zhu Tang, who is professor of Fudan University. He is a senior scientific advisor of the Program Office, International Research for Disaster Risk Reduction. Dr. Tang.
Thank you very much. A good day, everyone. Thanks, moderator. Thanks, Chartery. Thanks, Christine. Gave me the opportunity to share some idea with all of you. My topic is building a resilient city in the post-COVID-19 era towards integrated urban climate, environment, and health services. Next slide. Yes, as all you know, there's some the important publication issued by World Economic Forum and by UNDR on the related to the assessment report. They all point out the risk generated by the interaction of complex human and natural systems are increasing its tendency for systems reverberations. I call it a sort of a syndrome of the systematic risk. So, however, the pandemic of the COVID-19 has shown the world is not ready to deal with such risk in the connectivity, which have affected people's life, living, and their production of activity. You can also find the second wave of the pandemic happened to show the ineffective dealing with this sort of risk interconnectivity. So what the resilient city looks like, especially in a new era, I think it might be appropriate form both physical and virtual infrastructure and capacity to be more prepared for the physical, social, economic challenges in the city. To address this challenge, it calls for urban readiness on a systematic reverberations, I call this a syndrome of the risk interconnectivity. And it's an adaptation and emergency response. We call it climate as a climate emergency right now. Here are some points for building urban resilience. Not to limit to what I will mention, including science-based, sustained, and integrate urban service may apply. In order to save time, I will provide more detailed the discrimination in a summary part about some point here. But I will mostly focus on some best practice and experience already being developed and implemented at a global level, national level, and community level. For example, as the UN action call for integrated sustained planning for urban health requested by WHO, World Health Organization. And also UNDR developed a disaster resilience scorecard for cities together with WHO, especially its health emergency disaster risk management component. So this disaster resilience scorecard for cities calls for an integrated approach to break silos and risk management, including, especially in the component of collaborate city governance, integrate planning, and response planning, etc. Other sort of the achievement or progress made by international efforts, including one of the examples is the international network for multi-hazard early warning system, supported by 21 international organizations, was established in May 2015 during the Third World Conference on DR in Sendai, Japan. So INMIL is a sort of a global framework which can provide support to guide the development and implementation of the integrated urban services, as an example. Regarding to the health effect of the climate change, which already been fully identified by IPCC through its assessment report, especially its fourth assessment report, chapter 8, health related. The science-based service related to the weather and environmental sensitive disease and its vulnerability has been identified, and also the tool and system have been developed at global level, regional level, and national level. Here, one of the examples to show the scientific achievement to identify the relationship between rapid weather variation, which affect the human immune system, and the impact on the influenza like illness or influenza morbidity. Has shown such comparison have been shown in the figure in US, China, Italy, and France. There's a clear, good relationship between both of them. Another example to show the exposure and response relationship between PM10, PM2.5, and the daily mortality in 652 global cities. They show the clear relationship between the PM10, PM5, together with the daily mortality. The integrated approaches have been developed and demonstrated by relevant international programs, such as the weather and the environmental related impact-based forecasting and integrated services developed by the MAPAQ and IGAC as an example. And also integrated perspective approaches developed by the several international organizations for the driver to societal impact on climate and health. So the conceptual model for climate smart city has been demonstrated, including user interface for sustained and health city. This concept module already been implemented at the global level by different international programs and at the national level. The user interface platform has developed a global framework on climate services at the global level, regional level, and national level, has been identified and demonstrated. Here's one of the examples to show at the national level by using UK as an example to show the urban community response to airborne hazard, weather climate events, to show the joint efforts between the National Weather Service and the National the Health Service Authority to interact with vulnerable groups. The operational framework at city level, by using Shanghai as an example, to develop integrated impact-based forecasting system. And it's a subsystem to show the impact to the health. For example, heat waves, influence of forecasting, children asthma, the impact to forecasting, and COPD for elder group, and bacterial food poisoning warning the system and the tool. Capacity development and symposium have been regularly organized to show, to exchange the idea and achievement. So here's the summary. At the policy level, I think it's necessary to develop a policy on planning and designing for controlling urban scale and population density. Alexander just pointed out at the previous his introduction, and a policy for urban redundancy and flexibility and durability of the urban life safety and critical infrastructure system. And also the intercity co-design and co-planning for coordinated action are needed. The policy on enhancing effectiveness, efficiency, and the safety of the urban technical and industrial system and the process are also needed to increase urban energy efficiency and reduce urban environmental footprint. And also the policy on promoting sustained urban healthy lifestyle and prioritizing the walking as the preferred model of travel, and a strong risk settlement mechanism for the most vulnerable group are also needed. Regarding the technical the aspects, I think it's necessary to develop a strong digital networking supporting of new models of work at home and online shopping as a new common lifestyle in the city. And a strong integrated urban information system, just as I mentioned, mainly on the integrated urban services need to be developed to keep the city dwellers the risk informed for early response and for reducing infodemic. And also we need, it's necessary to address risk interconnectivity and its governance on climate environment health related to the cascading impact to social and economic development in the urban area. Last but not least, in the technical aspects, it's necessary to facilitate the development of the multi-hazard and impact information system and its services. Regarding to the institutional arrangement aspects, I think it's necessary to conserve and enhance the health of the natural system, especially in the urban and urban cluster area. And also it's necessary to develop a strong capacity on a community-centered or community-based governance for a healthy community. And also necessary to develop a strong capacity in remote medical diagnosis and treatment. So this is the last slide. Particularly with the following three recommendations as a strategy in order to achieve safer, more resilient and sustainable building and cities as follows. I don't want to read in detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Tang, very clearly outlining the importance of the integrated urban services, the science-based sustained integrated urban services to deal with concurrently, health epidemics like COVID-19, climate and natural disasters. And also we have outlined a number of areas for policy interventions, technological interventions and institutional arrangements. Our next presentation is by Dr. Ken Young, who is a well-known architect, ecologist, planner, and author, principal of TR Hamja and Young, Malaysia. Probably this is a university, so Christine can maybe correct. Okay, so Professor Young.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. The key factors I'm going to talk about today is the idea of resilience, biointegration, ecocentricity, infrastructure, constructed ecosystems, and ecosystem services. Resilience, I want to start because we're talking about resilience, so I should define, even as just for myself, what resilience means, which is creating a sustainable future for human society, but not just for human society, for all species and environments in the planet. The second aspect is that resilience depends on effective biointegration of human society and the systems with natural systems. The third idea I want to present is ecocentricity, that all action and design must be based on the science of ecology. Next would be infrastructure, that action must be not just at the building level, but at the infrastructure level. We can't talk about cities without talking about infrastructure. And that what we should do, this is an objective, that we should design cities as what I call constructed ecosystems, which is cities based on the emulation and replication of ecosystem attributes. And finally, one of the ecosystem attributes is ecosystem services, which is what nature does for us at no cost to us. Now let me just talk about resilience. Resilience has to do with adaptability, the adaptability to withstand or recover from unexpected action or impacts to the planet's natural systems. At the same time, it requires rapid adaptive corrective action to negative changes to natural systems to achieve positive outcomes. Now this is very important. That means you have to be able to adapt, to take action, and that has to be quick, and has to be corrective to negative changes. What we need, as you mentioned earlier on, is a global monitoring system. And so this is an example of a satellite system, but we should monitor not just climate, not just health, but also the ecology of the planet. That means biodiversity, devastations to the ecosystems, effects on deforestation, depletion of soils, impacts on hydrology and so forth. And we have the money for the system, but we should have this system set up as quickly as possible that monitors the ecology of the planet, and that there should be a response system as well, so that any effect or impacts on the ecosystem any illegal activities that some, you know, some people do should be reacted very quickly. Now, biointegration has to do with how we bring different parts of the systems together. My contention is that everything depends on effective biointegration. If we're able to biointegrate our human society and the systems with the natural systems in a seamless and with a seamless and benign way, there won't be any environmental impacts. And so we must learn how to biointegrate everything that we make, everything that we do, have to integrate our technology with the natural environment in a benign way. Now, this is a human being with prosthetic devices. There's a prosthetic arm, he has a prosthetic heart, his prosthetic hand, his prosthetic thigh, prosthetic knee. Now, the principle of prosthesis is that there is a host organism, which is the human body. And the prosthetic device is the artificial thing that we attach to it. And then everything depends on effective biointegration. Now, by analogy, our biosphere, our biogeochemical cycles, our natural systems is the host organism. The prosthetic devices is our built system. The technology, the artifacts, the semi-artifacts like food, everything that we make and do as human beings. And so if we're able to achieve effective biointegration, there will be no environmental consequences. There will be no environmental devastation, no environmental impacts. And so biointegration is absolutely important. And to me, there are two ways of biointegration. One is physical, which is almost putting something one to the other. The other is systemic, where everything is linked and connected as a whole. Now, so this is the cause of environmental impairment. Ineffective biointegration, for instance, of our energy production, it makes emissions, and we just think that everything we make will go somewhere, but there's no somewhere, there's no way, because our planet is a closed system. And so because of this, of the ineffective biointegration of our, for instance, in this example, of making energy and creating energy and emissions, and which are not integrated properly, that is cause of climate change, the cause of everything related to climate change, like bad health, poor health, to rising sea levels and temperature changes and so forth. And so, for instance, systemic, it's not so easy to be done, because if you look at this girl with an artificial arm, there are a lot of issues of integration of the arm with the whole body's nervous system, with its cardiovascular system, with its nervous system. And so, and then there's the dangers of if you just connected something artificial to something organic, the issues of getting septic. And so, we're a long way before we're able to achieve effective biointegration, but this is where we must focus our attention on. If we want to have resilient cities, you have cities which is free from diseases and COVID and so forth, we have to have effective biointegration. The next is ecocentricity. The contention is that all action and design must be based on the science of ecology, because we cannot be just based on energy, cannot be based on looking at waste, cannot be looked at incremental micro aspects, but look at it as a whole. And that's what ecology does. Ecology looks at the planet as a whole, and looks at localities as a whole, looks at the organic, the inorganic as a whole, the biotic and the abiotic as a whole. Now, ecology sees the Earth as covered by this thin film called the biosphere. And the biosphere consists of ecosystems, which is actually defined by some ecologists as ecologists' model of nature, because an ecosystem of both communities of plants and animals and the physical environment interacting as a whole. Now, a lot of people talk about designing sustainable buildings, sustainable architecture, sustainable structures, but I contend that sustainability starts with designing the infrastructure. Now, a city has infrastructure and with buildings attached to it, And then what architects do is to try and design sustainable buildings and green buildings, which is scattered throughout the whole city. But we should start with the infrastructure. What's the point of designing green buildings when the infrastructure itself is not green? And so the principle is that we should design sustainable buildings, starting with the sustainable infrastructure, so that whatever we build that makes the city sustainable. So my contention is that do not think about sustainability in terms of buildings, but we think of sustainable infrastructure as sustainable, built environment with the infrastructure, because if the infrastructure is green, if the energy source is green, then everything else becomes green. But if the energy source pollutes the environment, but you're making green buildings, then it's a totally useless exercise, because it makes total nonsense of design for a sustainable future. The water supply should be green. It should be not taking water taken from the groundwater, but should be from natural sources. The sewage system should be green. The energy system should be green. The IT system should be green. So ecological design, a sustainable future, a resilient future, a sustainable cities should start from sustainable infrastructure. Now, what is a sustainable infrastructure? So I have 4 aspects that constitute a sustainable infrastructure. The first one is nature itself. Nature is the base. Nature is the landscape as the infrastructure. The second is water. Now, even though water is part of natural systems, water has its own hydrological cycles. On top of that, our human society has its hydrological cycle. And that is human society. Human society means its social systems, economic systems, political systems, institutional systems, education systems. That itself is human society's infrastructure. And then the things that we make, and incidentally, we as a species make more things than any other species in nature, any other species. And these are the things I call the built environment. So sustainability is how we bring all these together into a seamless and benign whole. And that, to me, is the principle of sustainable design. How to integrate nature, infrastructure as an infrastructure, the water infrastructure, human society's infrastructure, the built environment, and everything that we make our technology as the infrastructure. Now, obviously, this is easier said than done. And that is the challenge of what we must
soon create a drag on the economies of developed countries. The main loser in these trends will, in the short run, be low-income households that have fewer survival options, but everyone will be affected in the long run. So we have some proposed climate actions, and these are not surprising, and I'll let you look at the details in the file, but we have to protect critical facilities and infrastructure, even if they don't live up to Dr. Yang's goal of having them compatible with ecological systems. But the ones we've got, we have to protect. We have to establish multi-stakeholder climate action authorities at national and local levels to establish relevant regulations and guidelines. We have to adapt global goals to local conditions, because unless you have local elites backing plans, nothing will happen. Support a shift from private to public transport. Neighborhood action strategies. Adjust value-added tax rates to provide incentives for renovation and disincentives for new construction. Renovation, existing buildings represent about 95 to 98% of the total building stock at any point. So we have to really focus on them. We have to freeze new construction in high-risk areas. We have to launch deep green renovation programs. We have to mitigate urban heat island effects by increasing areas of parks and urban forests. Short-term housing for population groups relocated, refuge centers in low-income neighborhoods during climate emergencies, urban agriculture to reduce transport emissions and to increase neighborhood access to fresh produce. Introduce incentives to move rapidly towards zero use of fossil fuels. Thermal, solar, gray water system synergies in groups of buildings. It's not just neighborhoods and single buildings, there are clusters of buildings where you can get efficiency improvements. minimize embodied energy and emissions, limit peak electrical demand so we don't have to build new generating capacity, very high operating efficiencies of new buildings, strengthen equipment and appliance efficiencies, and establish public building performance databases so that we can measure progress or lack of it. Now, COVID-19. Here is the data from WHO as of yesterday. This is the weekly smoothed graph of number of cases, and you can see it's rapidly escalating, and deaths are also rapidly escalating. This is not a good situation. The pandemic has revealed important conflicts between health requirements and the ability to satisfy these in urban areas or buildings of various types. Some requirements can be met with changes in management or minor renovations, but others demand more substantial changes, which may not be easy to implement in the short term. Other issues are related to urban scale, and there are even larger questions of national governments taking up the task of post-pandemic reconstruction. We have seen a massive change in work patterns. Teleworking, for example, has increased enormously, and also distance learning has increased. But there's a forced increase here. We reached a tipping point in terms of using internet and remote systems to do our work and learning. But some workers don't have access to telework. All these sectors have, and this is an example from Canada, but I think you will find it's fairly similar in other places. They have little access or no access to telework. One thing that happened was that urban public transit use declined rapidly. And you can see here we had in New York City, London, Toronto, and Paris. They all declined. I took this on September 9th, but I don't think it's come up very much since then. So people stayed away from public transit. So we have to make use of urban areas and buildings made redundant by the pandemic. We can't just leave unused office buildings or unused conference centers to rot over time. We have to convert them to new uses and make use of them. We have to launch major low-income housing and commercial retail renovation programs, partially because we need those kinds of uses, but also social equity and economic recovery measures. Training for doing renovation, for example, for low-income people can be very important to help them get a leg up on the economic ladder. We have to provide all new dwelling units with private outdoor space, gardens or courts or balconies. We have to adjust occupant densities in non-residential buildings to support increased distancing and limits on occupant density. In large apartment or mixed-use buildings, we should provide small apartment for isolation of visitors. We have to provide neighborhood fever clinics, which follows the Chinese model, and residential facilities to meet short-term isolation requirements. In long-term care residences.
Mr. Larson, kindly conclude.
Yes, okay. We have to limit occupancy to 2 persons per room. I don't think I've had my 10 minutes yet, but I will skip over this and just mention that there has been a paper by central bank officials and experts that are stating that we need and we can have governments intervene decisively and perhaps help launch such a initiative in a developing country if international funding support can be found. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Larson, for outlining a number of integrated actions in built environments to confront climate change and COVID-19 simultaneously, and how they create also synergy between the set of actions in achieving the resilience of our cities. The next presentation by Honorable Vice Mayor, Mr. Zhang Li, City of Langji, Zhejiang Province, China. Honorable Vice Mayor.
大家好，接下来我就中国兰溪市3个人居环境范例村的情况向大家做个汇报。兰溪市呢，大致情况先做个介绍。兰溪市呢，位于中国浙江省中西部，经许盆地边缘，汇集婺江、曲江精华的兰溪，在杭州接南北大运河，水运交通极为便利，故有7省通衢之誉。2018年统计户籍人口为66.05万人。2019年，兰溪市地区生产总值为385亿元左右。3大产业比例为7.5比51.4比41.1。兰溪有着近1400年的建县史，是一座人文荟萃、诗情画意的省级历史文化名城。依托3江之汇的水路交通优势，兰溪自古商贸繁荣，商贾云集，是钱江江上游最大的商品集散地和最繁华的商埠。在两宋时期，兰溪被称为天下江南。明清以来，有钱塘第一商埠之美誉，近现代更被誉为民国第一县，是名副其实的小上海。据三普调查统计，兰溪现有不可移动文物2631处，信息点2048处，全国重点文物保护单位8处，省级文保单位37处，市级文保单位89处。民居、祠堂、古桥、古塔各种类别应有尽有，宋元明清各朝代一应俱全，堪称立体的半部中国建筑史。可以说，兰溪的古城、古镇、古村落人居环境体系是历经1000年时间考验的卓越范例。兰溪市委市政府对古村落建筑保护特别重视，经常邀请专家来上课传授经验。下面介绍一下一些保护的实例，其中诸葛、长乐、资堰村等3个村有山、有水、有历史、有文化、有生活，活态存在千百年，堪称富春山居图上的实例，稀世之珍，是人居环境最完美、最真实、最理想的范例。下面介绍一下诸葛村。诸葛村位于浙中西部兰溪市境内，为全国重点文物保护单位，国家4A级旅游景区。有明清至民国期间建筑200多座，不同建筑类型50多种。现居诸葛亮后裔近2800人，为全国诸葛亮后裔最大聚居地。这里是打烊的店铺，还是村民与游客不愿意离去的好地方。村民们过着非常悠闲的生活，大家可以看得出是其乐融融。到现在为止，村民们都还有田可以种。这是过新年时候的舞龙灯，非常精彩。长乐村，那么长乐村呢，进村有1000多年历史，先后获得中国传统村落、省历史文化名村称号。全国重点文物保护单位。村落选址背靠燕山，以翠屏山为岸山，坐北朝南，有一条横向古驿道，3条纵向街道和呈支权状分布的巷道组成。石令溪由村西环绕而过，依山傍水。这是村庄南的月塘景观。这是国保文物单位长乐向贤厅，这是长乐的大宗祠。下面介绍一下资堰村。资堰村始建于南宋淳熙年间，至今已有839年历史。全村现存明清至民国时期保护的建筑63幢， 最著名的是号称9堂1街的古建筑群，结构别具特色，保存完整，用材考究，工艺精湛，具有极高的历史价值、科学价值和艺术价值，为全国重点文物保护单位。千年的水渠，村民们正在其中洗鱼，为自己准备美餐。清新的渠水可以净化空气，可以美化环境，还可以为洗涤衣物提供方便。这是千年老街，是村中的中轴线，是村民们最喜欢去的去处。这是建于元代的严德堂，是国保单位。诸葛长乐这些3个村历史悠久，布局科学，环境优美，建筑艺术高超，文化底蕴深厚，社会生态延续完好，基础设施齐备，绿色经济充满活力，在人与自然和谐相处、文化遗产保护及人居聚落可持续发展方面，以千百年的存在做出了最好的佐证。谢谢大家。最后祝15届全球人居环境论坛年会圆满成功。谢谢大家。
Thank you so much, Honorable Vice Mayor of Lang City, for outlining various initiatives in your city. Our last presentation in this session is Professor Zhang Guoqiang, is the Dean, Institute of Sustainable Urbanization and Construction Innovation, Hunan University, China. Professor Zhang.
在的。Yes, I'm here. Hey. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just a moment. I want to share my. Yeah, I'm sharing.
You need to unmute your system.
Yes, I'm preparing the. What's the problem? I don't know.
No, it's okay. Oh, moment. Okay.
Problem in uploading your presentation. Maybe someone from the secretariat could help.
Okay. Is it okay?
Great.
Okay. My slides are in English, so I speak in Mandarin. 我的这个题目呢是结合高质量绿色建造，提高防疫防控的能力，和我们这个前面杨教授和拉斯先生的是绿色和防疫结合，我们这里要加一个高质量的这个保证。那么第一个部分呢是中国新冠疫情的防控，我们可以说是对城市弹性的考验。新冠疫情影响人民身体健康，导致全球经济迟缓。那么武汉，中国灾情最严重的武汉，1000多万人口，我们封城76天，政府持续组织社区和家庭服务。那么全国也有42000医务人员驰援武汉。能听到吗？喂，这个翻译先生，您这里听得到吗？哎，听得到，好的 ，OK。然后我们也通过各种手段保证这个持续稳定的物资供应。那么特别值得一提的是我们的医院，这个疫情医院的建设，火神山医院。34000平米，1000个床位，10天建设完成。雷神山医院1500个床位，收治了2000多名患者，这是2个疫情医院。我们总结一下，就是说中国抗疫应该是比较成功的，它的因素，第一个就是基于专业知识的政府决策和组织，居民的自律。 第二个是全国乃至全球的医疗资源来支持灾区。第三个就是我们的城市弹性，我们有比较好的这个住房和卫生的状况，有比较高效的交通基础设施，另外还有我们医疗设施的这个建设，这个速度很快。那么第二部分是弹性城市和高质量绿色建造，我的一个理解。现代城市的主要灾害有人为灾害，比如恐怖袭击；自然灾害像地震和洪水，以及公共卫生灾害。那么这次的新冠病毒这种。这次这个新冠病毒的灾害对我们城市建设的启示。第一个，这个高质量绿色规划和建造，来支撑可持续的生活和工作方式的转型。那么这个可持续的绿色的生活和工作方式，应该说是我们现在的环境和灾害的一个最根本的原因之一。第二个是建造和可持续建筑环境领域的全球的趋势。那么包括这个全球变暖、环境恶化、灾害、劳动力短缺、建筑质量下降等等。但同时呢，我们又有新的这个技术带来我们的机会，那就包括有工业化、信息化、绿色化的这种技术，给我们带来机会。那么在我们这个启示里面的第二条呢是现代的技术，比如工业化和数字化的建造和管理，这个是非常重要的。另外呢就是国际合作，这样子能保证我们这个基础设施在平时和疫情的时候的高性能，以及增强城市的弹性。这是我们的整个的趋势，发展趋势刚才已经讲过。那么对中国，我们有全球最大的建设量和最多的标志性建筑物。但是我们的建造的质量，我估计很多发展中国家和我们一样，就是这个质量是有待提升的。所以我们中国的这个政府从2012年我们就提出了这个绿色发展提出了这个美丽中国。那么2017年我们提出了高质量发展健康中国，这是非常清晰的一个发展思路。第三个部分是我们湖南大学的这个高质量绿色建造方面的实践和研究。我们有湖南大学的城市与建筑创新研究院，国家级的建筑安全与环境国际联合研究中心，是跨学科的国际化的教育和研究机构，也包括我们提出和实践了高质量可持续建筑为目标的中国建造 4.0 的体系。那么包括教育研究、创新创业、示范项目、推广传播等。首先，我们明确地定义了什么叫高质量建造。那么我们理解为区域和建筑的功能要协调，我们建筑物的基本的安全和基本物理性能要好，我们有用户的感知性能要比较好，还有就是可持续性能。我们也提出了中国建造 4.0 的观点，这个 4.0 呢不仅仅是智能建造和建筑工业化，那么对于中国或者一部分发展中国家来说，可能特别重视这个质量的保证。那么这是我们质量保证体系的重点，我们应该说有基于战略和机制研究的政策制定和执行方案，以及高质量的教育和研究模式作为基础支撑。那么基于这个思路，我们创建了这个中国建造 4.0 的国际创新平台。 那么在教育方面，基础的教育方面，我们2005年就获得了欧盟的资助，率先开展绿色建筑的教育。在研究方面，我们基于 IEA 国际能源机构等平台开展国际合作，包括 IEA 的社区和建筑节能以及蓄能等组织，开展与疫情控制相关的通风技术研究和新能源应用技术研究。在创新创业方面，我们建立了一批公司来对我们的研究进行实践，包括有技术公司，有文化传播公司。那么技术公司呢是开发建筑信息化、建筑环境和新能源应用的产品和服务。那么国际合作的示范项目也正在进行中。那么推广传播相关的工作，每年我们有博览会、论坛和国际学术会议，以及我们的专业网站、学术刊物和培训学校。4年来，我们持续采用国际合作和产学研结合的模式，开展博览会、论坛、学术会议，在国内外产生了比较大的影响。那么这个会议呢，这个活动是每年我们的国内外的行业专家们和企业领袖们聚会的地方。但是今年呢，因为疫情，我们推迟到明年了，所以计划是明年的5月，我们再继续举办会议。这是我的一个结论。我们第一个部分呢是政策干预，在对中国和其他发展中国家，我们建议将可持续和弹性建筑与城市与高质量建造的这种努力和工作结合起来。第二就是加强国际合作，在政策制定和执行方面分享经验和专业知识。第二个是技术干预，就是促进建筑和城市高质量绿色发展的多学科教育，以及加强对弹性建筑和城市实践的研究支持。教育和研究作为最基本的支持。第3个部分呢是制度性的安排，我们建议呢要保持建筑物和基础设施处于长期的专业维护运行状态，以满足平易结合的需要。同时，妥善安排和设置防疫部门和防疫人员的职能，考虑平易结合的要求。谢谢大家。
Thank you so much, Professor Zhang, for your extremely valuable presentation. And you showed how the high quality green planning and construction could be utilized as a strategy or basis for fighting the pandemic. At the same time, the building the resilience of cities and make the buildings adaptable. Thank you so much. With this one, we have finished all 6 presentations. We have 3 expert interventions. I would like to first invite Mr. Hong Cheng, who is a well-known planner and designer, member of the expert committee of China Folk Architecture Research Association. Mr. Tai Cheng, your turn for expert intervention. Maybe 3 minutes. I don't know actually how much time we are left with. Christine, could you please advise?
I think we have 7 minutes left.
7 minutes.
同时，在我们的户型设计上也有着多功能的设计，入户前的一个消毒区域，还有小区内部的相互隔离，户内的运动区域等都有设置，所以让整个建筑更适应各种生活状态下的独特调节。我的发言结束，谢谢大家。
Thank you so much, Mr. Yong Fang. We have now the last intervention by Mr. Fangbing Zhao, the director of Nanning Zhonghai Hongyang Ayu Real Estate Company Limited in China. So Mr. Gao, 2 minutes.
大家好，非常开心有这样的平台。我现在共享一下我的演讲。跟刚才各位讲的不同，大家讲的是一个方法或者一个系统，那么我可能就是分享一个建筑设计的案例。我们是一个建筑师事务所，那么在这个案例里面呢，它在中国的南宁，它是一个山地，就是一个纯粹的地产项目，就是一个密度比较高的社区。那么这个问题呢，其实在中国是非常独特的现象。我们有大量的建设，大量的人会居住在新开发的社区里面，因为土地越来越稀少，土地呢逐渐变到郊区，变到了山上。比如南宁这个城市，它从来没有一个在山上修的居住区，没有在山上进行开发。那么这个项目呢，应该是南宁比较集中、比较大的一个。那么，对于山体来说呢，自然的山有各种各样的肌理，它会有自然的形态。那么我们人工在过去低密度的情况下，刚才有专家分享的案例，中国的一些古老的村庄，它的密度非常低可以居住的非常的自由。那么在于大规模的这个项目来说呢，必须面临的就是切山、造台地，只有把山分成台地，才能满足大量的人口在这里面。
高总你好，不好意思打扰一下，高总你好，请看一下你的视频，请打开一下接受一下你的视频。
请稍等。
可以了。可以了
吗
？OK， 好，请继续。
我的共享屏幕没有问题吧？现在？
关掉了，你又关掉了，你不要关掉。
好的。
对。OK。
现在可以了。
OK， 可以了。
我现在开始，现在可以看到我的共享屏幕吗？你好，可以看到我的屏幕吗？
现在可以看到了。
好的，那我继续。那我们在山地的居住呢，还有一个就是让更多的居住者可以有更好的视线。这个是山地带来交通不便的同时另外一个非常有利的一面，就是大家住在山上都可以视线看得更远享受到江边吹过来的更好的空气。那么最后这个项目的效果呢就是这样，它在南宁的江边居高临下，这个场地到江边的距离垂直的高度有200米，也就是说以后所有的大量的居民会在这个山上200米的高度面对这个江居住。那么在设计的时候，其实一个最主要的手法呢，就是我们找到了一个非常重要的一点，就是水平的线条自然的江和山都是从大的尺度看都是水平的。那么我们在建筑里面碰到的等高线，就是把这种自然的山地变成了一根根的水平线。那么以这一点出发呢，我们所有的就是从每一户居住的这个单体到整个规划都是以水平线和面宽，就是增加每一户居住的宽度来处理这个居住的问题。那么宽度意味着减低它的进深这样也就是说在南宁这样一个闷热的城市，在山上它的风可以有很好的穿堂风这是我们设计的手法。那么第一步呢，我们碰到的就是怎么改造这个山体。大家可以看到这个山有100米的高差，100米的高差，严格的意义上来讲，其实是属于不适合做居住建筑的一块地。那么在这样的情况下，我们就开始研究这个怎么让这个居民在这个山地里面生活和切台。首先我们把山顶降低，其次呢，在山等高线的几个山基的地方建立了几个比较宽的轴线把这个台地我们研究了很多种类型，最后定的是7米乘15米的台地来解决这个高差最后就是实现了这样一个效果。那么这个效果呢是保证了建筑在南宁这个气候下日照、通风朝向包括江景综合了各个因素之后得到了一个最终的规划。那么大家可以看到画面中间有一个蓝色的这样一个集中的服务中心这个呢可以说是整个小区大家在这里锻炼生活聚集的一个大的场所。这个建筑非常大，有2万平米。因为在山地居住里面，一般的小区我们可以到外面，可以到马路边，可以到城市其他区域去享受这个城市的配套。那么既然住到了山上 在上山下山都会形成一个普通的回家都会成为一个比较严重的问题的时候我们把这个所有人都要享用的运动餐厅或者说孩子小朋友的娱乐的空间集中在中间，更好的为整个社区的人服务。另外，我们的单体设计呢，这个就是展示刚才设计的效果。每一户面宽达到了18米，这个在中国现在的房地产的这个大家通常做的产品里面是非常少见的，就是为了争取更多的采光和这个通风效果。我们这个户内呢可以看到非常贯通的客厅，阳光空气都可以自由的进入。然后我们有一些户型的这个主卧室的面宽就达到了8米。可以享受8米的江景，这个阳台可以和山体和江景对话。那么最后呢，这个就是刚才我说的，我们中间的那个小区的社区中心，社区中心2万平米解决了生活中需要的健身棋牌娱乐、餐饮休闲，而且我们设了2个游泳池在这个建筑里面，一个游泳池呢在室内，是恒温泳池，另外一个游泳池呢是在建筑的屋顶它是因为南宁的气候。每年应该说有10个月都可以使用这个户外泳池这个我们也希望成为整个这个亚热带地区气候的一个呼应点这是我们设计这个会所初衷的时候，就是在山的最高处成为整个建筑群成为甚至是从城市看过来一个亮点，把居住区的设计变成了一种带精神追求的东西。OK， 这个就是我们的一些配套，我们看到游泳池。餐饮区，包括健身房。最后呢，就是山地的景观的打造。因为大量的人口聚集之后，必须需要有公共的空间。这张图片显示的就是我们最主要的一个公共空间轴。这个轴有50米乘200米长，它是一个坡地的。那么怎么在坡地上实现？我们通过了大量的做模型的方法来研究这个可实现性最终就是一个梯形的轴组织这个山地的公共空间。这个是现场施工的状况。现场施工应该比这个更快了，这个应该是几个月之前的照片，可以看到这个山体一些空的轴线和江的关系已经出来了。好，最后这个就是在中国正在发生的大量的这种高密度的建筑的建设，我们希望通过这个项目，在山地研究高密度和这种垂直交通，还有就是每一个单体居住的时候的通风采光的这个可能性，做了一个从规划到建筑单体的一个实际的案例。好，我就分享这么多，感谢各位，非常感谢。
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gao, for your interventions. I think we had an excellent session. We discussed a range of structural and non-structural measures, strategies towards building resilience of our cities and how to make the buildings adaptable. Some of the key things that emerge from our discussion from this session is ecosystem-based approach, a science of ecology, whatever plans and actions we follow with regard to buildings and urban areas, it should follow the science of ecology. Urban design should be in harmony with the nature. And we discuss also the green technology and construction. And also this session address the synergies in our actions towards climate mitigation and also fighting with these epidemics like COVID-19. So I think a range of discussion. I think all of us know that as human activities continue to disturb the ecosystem worldwide, we are also likely to see the more pathogens crossing from the wildlife to the humans in the future. Therefore, how we manage our natural resources and ecological assets in the context of urban resilience, that will be a defining strategy for future. I think we are witnessing unprecedented level of urbanization and emergence of megacities all over the world. At the same time, when we talk about resilience, we also need the lasting supply security of natural resources. So our urban design and resilience of ecosystem resilience of ecosystem services are actually the two sides of a single coin. With this one, I would like to thank all the resource persons, all the commentators here for making excellent presentations, deliberations, and interventions. I would like to request all of us to make a round of applause to the commentators, the presentators and commentators. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mohanji. And
just a minute, Christine. Yes. I do not see any questions here in the chat box, but if there are any questions from the floor, maybe direct to the respective resource person for a bilateral exchange. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.